Last week, we spoke with writer Christina Farley about her novel, Gilded. Christina, before you wrote that book, you were still writing, weren't you?
Before I started writing Gilded, I actually wrote a lot of short articles for children. So I wrote for Highlights, I wrote for Fun for Kids, and just a bunch of different magazines like that, Boys Quest. So I was doing a lot of those short, the short stories, the articles, because as a teacher, I was able to teach a lot of concepts and also share stories because I've been teaching my whole life and talking to kids. So it really kind of fit in really nicely for me.
And now you're writing serialized novels. Well, first of all, you got to explain the concept of a serialized novel.
A serialized novel basically takes a story and you tell it in small chunks, and each chunk is uploaded. For me, it's every Sunday, so once a week. And this is a little bit of a different process for me because The Dream Heist I wrote in pretty much one go, like a big chunk of time. But season 2 in that serial, I was writing week to week. And I was using my readers as inspiration. So I have a group, VIP group, and they would share with me things that they would like to see in the story. And then I wrote based on that. And then I also, like the story, The Dream Heist is heavily based on my own travels. And so last fall, I went to Peru. And while I was there, I'm like, oh my goodness, like there is so much around me that's so inspirational. And so I brought a lot of that into the story. And so I had my characters going to all the places that I went to. And then I was able to share my images and my pictures and say, hey, this is where this scene is located. And so it's a really different process for writing, but kind of exciting at the same time. So it was a very different way to write a story. And then once I finished writing the season 1 and season 2, now I'm putting it into book format. And then Blackstone Publishing has bought the audio for it. And so it will also be an audio, which is really exciting too. So it's just kind of a really different process, very exciting. It kind of harkens back to Mark Twain because that's how he started writing with his episodes in the newspaper. And so instead of the newspaper, we have, online, which is really neat. And then also I'm serializing it through Kindle Vella, and Kindle Vella offers little separate sections below where the author can share their inspirations for the scene or things like that. So I put in their author notes about like, this is where this scene was, located, or where this was inspired by, or these are some of my thoughts that I had when I wrote this. And then below that, they have a poll feature where you can vote. Like, these are my favorite characters. This is what I would like to see next in the story. This is what I love. And I just thought that was really fascinating. And I also found it really pushed me as a writer. Like, it took me to the next level because it made me write quickly, but also to listen to my readers and find out what they liked and enjoyed, and then kind of bring that to the table. So it was kind of a collaborative process between me and my readers. It was really exciting and really different. But yeah, that's basically what it is.
One of the big differences with serialized fiction is that you don't have an editor looking at your work before it goes out into the public. How does that affect you as a writer?
Well, for The Dream Heist, that was heavily edited between my agent, I have critique partners, and then I hired an editor that looked at that. And that was, once I had finished writing all that, put it together. When it went to book format, then it was edited. But when I went just directly to Kindle Vella, I had it sent to my editor week by week. And it was kind of proofread, and the flow wasn't completely there. So then once we're finished with season 2 next, whenever I finish that and have that ready, then I'll have to revamp that and do a little bit of more work with it. So once I'm finished with the whole project, then I do a heavy rewrite and look at that. So it's a little bit of a different process in that case. But yeah, I do feel like it's important to have that editorial side of things, other people looking at that, your critique partners or your beta readers or whoever you have, you're an agent or editor that can look at that. So that's important.
Well, suppose you get halfway in and realize you are going in the wrong direction. What do you do when you're in the middle, when you're writing serialized stories?
It's absolutely terrifying. I didn't really have that problem with season 1 of The Dream Heist because I really had plotted it all out and had it all thought through. But season 2, I got behind at one point, and then I was starting to writing week by week, and it was really terrifying. But it was also incredibly invigorating and exciting. I sat down and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just don't know how to explain it. It was kind of this rush. Can I do this? Can I accomplish this? Can I get myself out of this plot hole that I throw myself into? And now I have an issue here that I've got to somehow fix. And I was able to do it. But I don't recommend it for a new writer. I've been writing for a long time, for 15 years, published traditionally, over, many years and many books. And so I've worked with many different editors and critique partners. So I have a little bit of a base to kind of build from. It was still scary, but really fun, really fun. Yeah.
Did the traditional side of your publishing life have worries or concerns about you giving away your material on Vella?
So that was something that my agent and I did talk about, but we felt like you do have different audiences. Your audience for your ebook is going to be very different from your audience for your paperback, which is different from your audience for your audio. And Kindle Vella audience is a separate audience for that. So I'm really reaching multiple different audiences for this. And so now when I'm going into ebook, paperback, and audio, I'll be reaching completely different readers. So I think that's really kind of something to think about when you are publishing in Kindle a serialized story, however you're going to show that your readers are going to be a little bit different than your readers for your books. For me, I made my serial into a book, and then when I went to go edit it, I had to make adjustments and changes. So that's something to keep in mind.
Well, what's your best piece of advice for somebody considering writing serialized fiction? What have you learned?
I have learned a lot. But my biggest piece of advice is to make sure that you're creating a story that the world that's big enough to kind of play with. You want to have a lot to play with. Because ideally you would like to continue this on for a long time, a story for a long time. And that's what I kind of ran into with Dream Heist. I'm like, well, I was able to get 2 seasons out of it, but it's kind of like a TV series. Some TV series are just good for a couple seasons and some are good for a longer period of time. So I feel like having kind of build a bigger world, lots of characters that you can play with, that does help to make it more successful for yourself. And then also have a good idea, a good plot kind of spectrum of where you want to go with your story and different avenues you can play with in that spectrum. So I think that's really helpful too.
Do you think this is the way you're going to be writing in the future?
Yes and no. I'm still writing just a traditional format for books. I have a book just sent to my agent. It's a novel, and it would not be perfect for serialized fiction. So that is with her, and we will try to, publish that traditionally, but I will continue writing serialized fiction on top of it. I want to do both because serialized fiction is just so much fun. It allows me a lot of creative space, and sometimes in traditional publishing, it's sometimes a little more constricting of what you can do or what they're looking for. They're like, well, we're looking for this certain type of mermaid book and only this type, And so this allows me a lot more freedom. And I love that as a creative person. And I think as creative people, we need to have that avenue of allowing us to have some creativity in what we do and without, boxing ourselves in. And I think that serialized fiction really allows you to do that. It allows you to play, it allows you to experiment and do things you would never do, which in turns allows you to grow as a writer. And I highly recommend that part. Finding something that allows you to grow.
We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org, on our Writers on Writing page. And it is election season, and if you want to get your kids excited about exercising your democratic voice, listen to our special Let Kids Vote episodes of the Fina Mendoza Mysteries. Fina and her classmates are lobbying real-life Congressman Mark Takano to support lowering the voting age to double digits. In other words, 10 years old. There's free curriculum and a facts behind the fiction blog all about the history of lowering the voting age. All of that on the Fina Mendoza Mysteries podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts.